Time now for the Educated Retirement Show with your host, Jay Kaplan. Jay discusses reverse mortgages and can answer your questions at 951-922-3532. Call lines are open at 951-922-3532. And now here's Jay.
And joining us today is guest host Thomas Markel.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for being with us today on this beautifully sunny day in Southern California. And I am Tom Markel, taking the place for Jay Kaplan. We missed Jay. Jay's got a little bit of a health issue and trying to deal with that right now. And so he's asked me if I would step in. And I told him, look, it's the first time I've ever done anything like this, so be patient with me, audience. So I hope that his audience score doesn't go from 1,000 to 0 just because I'm the new the host on the show. But it's a real pleasure for me to do this, and a real pleasure for me to introduce a good friend of mine, a guy named Bill Morris. Bill is on the show with us. Say hello, Bill.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
So anyway, a little bit about my background. I'm a consummate entrepreneur. I've formed 18 companies, and I'm kind of like a baseball player. I've had 9 base hits, 2 triple plays out of the park, home run, and 3 strikeouts. And I've come to learn something about what was formerly called the reverse mortgage market. The government changed the name to a home equity conversion mortgage. And I believe it should be called just a retirement mortgage because it's absolutely the finest vehicle I think anybody should buy over 62 for wealth preservation. Even my wealthiest friends are using this product for financial estate planning. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that, but more importantly, I want to have introduce Bill Morris. Bill is a professor at UCI on entrepreneurship. He comes from Wall Street, so he's a finance background guy, but he not only just has finance, he's a good people person. He's got tremendous marketing skills, and he's written a wonderful book called The Formula for Success, just to show everybody here. And it's available on Amazon. And we're going to talk to Bill about why he wrote it, what's he seen in his lifetime on Wall Street and being a teacher to kids that are looking to form companies. He's been an advisor to some of the biggest CEOs in the finance world. So I'd like you to welcome Bill. And Bill, tell us what you got to tell us.
Thank you, Tom. I truly appreciate it. And first, I want to say, I hope that Jay is feeling better because he's such a terrific guy. There's no question about that. The Formula for Success, it was a book that I've been pushed to write for many, many years because I've been doing motivational speaking to kids, mostly to kids and corporations and athletes on really just how to get it together. And if you think of it like a 3-legged stool, like one leg is mental, one leg is physical, one leg is spiritual. If one of those legs is not there, you're out of balance. So the concept of the book is really to kind of show you how to get it together mentally, physically, and spiritually. And once you're in balance, things always go the right way. So that's the whole purpose of the book.
I got married 36 years ago, and since then we've had 4 kids. And I can remember my wife, after about a year being married, I joined Wall Street, traveled on Sundays, came back on Fridays out of California. And one day I come home and she says, you know what? I think you need a spiritual retreat. You're just not together. And so she sends me down to this retreat down at this Catholic retreat center down in Oceanside, and for 3 days. And you're right. It's when one of those legs is missing, the others pick it up better than you do.
Right. Exactly. And for me, it's been a passion my whole life just to try to help people. And it started out really helping teams, and I still do that. And I do it to an extent, even at UCI as a professor. I teach strategy and I teach entrepreneurship, both to the graduate and the undergraduate level. But my world started in New York City. I went to high school in New York City. I graduated from a school in New York City. I worked on Wall Street. I went to graduate school there. So New York City is my home. Since I've come out to California, I realized I'm in heaven with a zip code. It is just fabulous out here. Not leaving. My career started with Exxon Corporation, did really well with them. Then I moved on down to Wall Street. I was with Kidder Peabody and also with Lehman Brothers. And I ran international finance by the time I was 30 years old. And so I was responsible for everything in London, Paris, Geneva, Zurich, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. And it was really, obviously a lot of stress, but it was also a lot of fun. But I made my way out here to California to be the CFO and EVP of a New York Stock Exchange company, and haven't left. But my passion is really the formula for success, just showing people how to kind of get it together mentally, physically, and spiritually.
So do you have any? So we've got this three-legged stool. We've got the spiritual, right? We've got the mental. We've got the physical. I know you're one of the Guinness Book of World Record holders. Could you share the physical side of that one-legged stool with us and how you've done it?
Absolutely, Tom. So that's a great one. So when I was working on Wall Street, I was on the board of directors of Make-A-Wish. And Make-A-Wish is an organization that grants a terminally ill child their last wish. And so as part of their board of advisors, board of directors, obviously it was all about fundraising. So I'm on Wall Street and I said, God, I got to do something, for the kids. Wonder what that would be. So I've always been into fitness. And I was talking to my two kids and they said, well, Dad, why don't you, just do something that, that you love doing. I said, okay, I'll do something in the world of fitness. So, I went into my chairman at Kidder. His name was Al Gordon. And Al ran marathons until he was in his 80s. So we kind of, mano to mano, it worked out really, really good. I said, Al, I want you to give me $1 a sit-up. For every sit-up I'm going to do a sit-up-a-thon. And all the money's going to go to the charity, every penny. And he goes, oh, that's great. And Al and I are talking for like 10 or 15 minutes. I leave his office. Of course, I was in awe of being in the chairman's office at my age. And I turned around and I said, Al, you never asked me how many I'm going to do. And Al goes, oh, yeah, how many are you going to do? I go, 5,000. He goes, great, good luck. And he gave me like $5,000. This was coffee money for him. So the first year, that's all the money that we raised. And the second year, third year, fourth year, and fifth year, I got many, many people on Wall Street to donate a penny, a sit-up. And the second year I did 10,000. Third year I did 15,000. Fourth year I did 20,000. And then the fifth year I did 25,000, but I don't count the 25 because I did potty breaks. But the 5, 10, 15, and 20 were all consecutive. And the 20,000 took me 11 hours and 32 minutes. And we raised about $150,000 for the kids.
Wow. And no potty break.
No potty breaks.
How many sit-ups again?
It was 20,100.
20,100. So that leg of the stool was really getting built up.
Exactly. I've been into fitness for as long as I can remember. But again, it goes back to what I was saying before about the mental, physical, and spiritual. The mental part, of my book, it's all about how to set your goals properly. So when I was 35, actually when I was 33, I set a goal for myself, excuse me, that when I was 35, I would do 3,500 sit-ups for my birthday. And I trained like an animal for 2 years, ate right, slept right, the whole 10 yards. And at 4:30 in the morning, got up, went to the gym, and I put down a matchstick for every 100 I did until I had 35 matchsticks. And so I knew when I went into Al Gordon about doing the 5,000 sit-ups, I knew I could do that because I had just done 3,500 for my birthday, my 35th birthday. And it's all about goal setting. It's all about being focused.
Now, I know we're a few minutes from coming to a break here, but so let's stay on the physical side for a little bit longer. So we talked about, obviously on the mental side, you're setting goals to get to 20,000. You didn't know you could do 20. You knew you could do 5. How did you set yourself up to get to the next goals? And then how did you deal with, failure?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so like I said, my first year out doing this was 5,000, and that took me approximately 3 hours. And I want to talk about failure for a second here, Tom, because this is really, really important. The second year, I announced that I was going to do 10,000. And this guy came up to me and he said, Bill, he goes, what are you, crazy? You're going to double it? And he literally put a negative thought in my head, which literally stayed there for about 24 hours. And I was like doubting. I was like, well, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not eating right. Maybe I'm, that's too much of a jump. And then I thought about it and I said, this guy doesn't know me. He has no idea. And I said, so I put him out of my mind. That was the last negative thought I've ever entertained back at that age, because people will constantly come at you with negative, thoughts. I just wash them out of it's like in one ear and out the other. It just doesn't even exist. But for me, it was just another couple thousand, I think in sets of 1,000. So
right.
This was really not a big deal for me. The funny part, just a real quick funny story. So we had high school kids coming in counting, and they used one of these lap counters. And this kid says, he goes, Mr. Morris, he goes, and I'm doing my sit-ups and going back and forth. And he goes, I don't know how to tell you this. I said, what? He goes, my thumb is getting tired. Let me go and choke this. But anyway.
Something.
Yeah, so, the negative thought thing, Tom, to me is a really critical thing. People will constantly put doubt in your mind, put fear in your mind. That washes away, in my mind. That it just never sits. But to answer your question specifically, I raise, my numbers, I raise my sets. So, for example, let's say you could do 10 sit-ups. I would have you drop back and probably do 5 sit-ups. And then go and do another exercise, and then come back and do another 5. Go do other exercise, come back and do another 5. So you build your numbers, and then you build your sets. So this way, at the end of the day, you've done 15, which is a lot more than the 5 that you could do at one clip. So you build your numbers, build your sets, and you just keep moving it up, and that's basically what I did.
So that also builds confidence, doesn't it?
It does. There's nothing better than confidence. When you're in a situation and you feel as though, even if you're not accepted at something, but you feel that you've done 110%, that's all that matters.
What's the old saying? 90% perspiration, 10% inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. This is true. For everybody, it's different. There's a different formula for everybody.
Sure. So kind of on the physical side, and we'll get back to, I know they're going to break here in about a minute, but I want to tee this up, and that is, you've also got another kind of personal record, right, with the leg push-ups, the leg pushers?
The squats.
Squats.
Yeah. I've squatted over 1,000 pounds. There's something for me on YouTube, I think, where I'm squatting 840 or something like that. But, they're what we call mini squats.
Yeah.
You can find me on YouTube doing that. I've also got a workout on YouTube that nobody has been able to do. And I did this, obviously as an older guy in my 60s. And it's called the Bill Morris 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 workout. And I do 150 exercises.
Hold on, we're going to talk about that. We're going to save that for the next half. The 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 Bill Morris workout. I think that you're saying it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Dr. Bill, Billmorris.
Yep,
And that's
10, 20, 30, 40.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50.
That's it.
All right, we're going to talk more about what that means in the next half of the show.
Yeah, but I want to get away from the physical. I want to start talking more about the mental.
We will.
That's really critical.
Now back to the Educated Retirement with host Thomas Markel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Retirement Network with Jay Kaplan. And I'm sorry Jay can't be here if you just joined us. He's a little a bit down under the weather. Not COVID, just down under the weather. And if you have any questions for Bill Morris, we're at 951-922-3532. You're welcome to call in and ask Bill or myself just about anything you want. We've seen a lot of life. Myself, I'm just about ready to turn 65 and get that Medicare. I think Bill is in his mid-70s and 72, early 70s, 72. So, and Bill's, we're going to talk about, when we just left you, we're talking about Bill's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 workout. And so now that we're all seniors, we're going to go rush home after this video and try to get our first 10 in. But Bill, can you share us on the mental leg of your stool? Bill wrote a great book called The Formula for Success. Here it is, and I know we're going to show you how to get that on Amazon. And so Bill talks about the three-legged stool of success, which is mental, physical, and spiritual. So in the first 20 minutes, we talked about the physical. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the mental, and we're going to close with the spiritual side. So Bill, tell us about your 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 workout.
Okay, well, this will wrap up the physical part. So in this video, as I mentioned before, I've been into fitness for my whole life. And until a couple years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, I was a candidate for the TV show, The American Ninja Warrior. So I produced a video that said, hey, look, I should be on the show and I should win it. And I'm going to give all the money to charity. But choose the T-Rex, choose the dinosaur, please. Long story short, I put together this Bill Morris 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 workout. And I do 10 pull-ups. And then, excuse me, I do 20 curls. I forgot what you'll see it on the YouTube. Then I do 30 bar dips, and then I run over and do 40 sit-ups with a 45-pound plate on my chest, and then I bench press my entire weight 50 times. And we have not found anybody who can do it yet. Just shows you what you can do when you're old.
Or you set your mind to it.
Thank you very much, Tom. Yes.
So this is a tee-in to the mental side of your book, if you're setting your mind to it. And as we all get older, we have a tendency to be kind of live in this fearing world, right? We'll go into the spiritual side, how the Bible talks about the number one word is thou shalt not fear, biblically. But we're going to talk about how you set yourself up to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And it sounds like you're doing that in small bites. You start small, you work into you work into this bigger goal. But let's talk not only about that, but let's talk how you set yourself up. How do you set yourself up against fear?
Yeah. Okay. I think everything we do in life is practice. So when I set my goals, I set them long-term and short-term. And I've got in the book, it's a 10-step process of how to set your goals. Probably the most important aspect is to write them down. Most people will not do that. And they'll laugh at me. And I go, I don't care. So as I write mine down, I post them on my lamp. So it's the last thing I see when I go to bed, and it's the first thing I see when I wake up in the morning. I'm laser focused. Tom, you and I talked about this once before. Even as seniors or as we get older, people need three things in their life. They need hope, they need love, and they need sense of purpose. And setting your goals in a format like this is so critical to making that sense of purpose come true that it's absolutely critical. So let's talk for a minute about your question about fear. Fear is not something that I entertain. So if you think of it like this, you can either have a positive mental energy, positive mental attitude, as I call it, PMA, or negative attitude, positive, negative. So think of it like a sink, like you're reaching for the hot and cold. You can turn either one with the same effort. It just is up to you which one you want to choose. I do not rent space out in my head to negative thoughts or negative people. Everything I do is on a positive plane. So it's taken some practice over the years, but I just shut that out. They don't get to rent space in my head. So fear is not something I work with. I spend all my mind in putting that positive energy to work to make my goals come true.
Is there a training that you have done to kind of pull that away? So I hear you're writing down your goals. Those are physical, mental, spiritual, books you want to read, I suspect, things you want to eat, places you want to go today, so on. But is there a way in which you've succeeded at these physical goals, right? By writing them down, hitting them, by practice, right? How do you take out the fear piece? Is there a practice that you use, a practical?
I think the fear piece, Tom, is it's all mental. You can, I don't entertain fear. So over the years, I've eliminated that from my thought processes, so it's not something I entertain. I only entertain positive or energy. And, some people can achieve this through meditation. Some people can achieve it. I achieved it through practice, one day at a time, just every day focused. If my mind is filled 100% with positive thoughts, I don't have room for 10% of negative thoughts. And so that's how I did it.
So we talk about as we get older, we're seeing, my dad said to me as he got in his 80s, he says, I'm seeing more of the doctor than I am your mother. And so you have this tendency to see more physical ailments occurring, right, as you get older. And that automatically creeps in negative senses. Am I going to die? Am I going to be a burden to my wife? Am I going to be a burden to my kids? Oh boy, I'm running out of money. What happens if the doctor costs this much? The practical issues of life are going to get in, and we've got to live with these practicalities, right? We're all getting older. You can't do 21,000 sit-ups anymore.
Hey,
right?
wait a minute.
Well, maybe 24,000.
Yeah.
So how do we practice, and what do we do to practice on the mental side? As much practice as you've done on the physical, what tools can we use on the mental side to help us understand the practicality of living our lives as seniors?
Yeah, great question. So, as we get older, we get, closer to heaven's gate. We know that. That's just reality. That's not going to change. It's just the way it is. So I accept it. I embrace it. I know it's coming. No big deal. What is a big deal for me is how I choose to spend my time on earth right now. And what that is, it's like every day is a gift, and I look at every day, it's almost like they say, the future is a mystery and the past is history. Today is the present, open it like one. And I look at every day as a present. I look at every day as just another opportunity to have fun, enjoy myself, listen to good music, so on and so forth. There's no fear in there. It is just, enjoying the day as the day progresses. If I spent my time worrying about, just getting older and the fear of it, I might as well just check out now. I mean, to me, that's not worth getting out of bed for me.
Right.
Getting out of bed is important for me to achieve things, help people. That's what my mission in life is all about, helping people. If it was to be self-absorbed about me and all my issues and my fears and problems, I would, honest to God, rather be dead.
Yeah.
That's not something that, that's not something that I even entertain.
Interesting. You mentioned the ability to really think about others. If you're serving others, you have a tendency to kind of not focus on yourself, do you?
Right.
Exactly. If you're helping out at the local senior care place, or you're with friends helping friends, it seems that your own issues go away, and as you start to help others, whether it's your grandchildren or your children, or it's the orphanage or whatever you're into,
Yes.
Pick giving type things that make the world bigger than you.
Yep.
Right. Kind of a ministry, living in a ministry type of thought process.
Yeah, good word. Even when my kids were young, we would go to St. Francis Xavier down on 20th Street. We would go to the soup kitchen and just, help people. Like on a Sunday, we would put out 1,000 meals every Sunday. And when you get into a space where you're helping others, mentally you're just saying, well, God, I've got it so great. You know what I mean? It's all about, I call it, my motto in life is learn, earn, and return. And it's all about giving back from me. Whatever it is, just helping people. That's what gives me joy in life. Now, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself. And I can say that when I'm helping another individual, I get the bigger benefit. That's how I feel.
And you're doing obviously this as a professor at UCI in entrepreneurship. You're working with these kids that are freshmen, sophomores, juniors, some maybe MBAs, but you're certainly getting paid a rounding error compared to you got paid at Wall Street. So there must be a bit of a ministry in this job of yours.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. I'm certainly not doing it for the money. God knows that. I just have the greatest kids in the world. And, I've got a stack of letters that are, a couple inches thick from my kids. Just being so grateful for the guidance and, putting them in touch with the right people, teaching them how to interview, just, teaching them how to write letters, just teaching them business 101, if you will. But the admiration I get from my kids, it's worth more than a Ferrari,
Yeah.
It's just fabulous. It's just absolutely fabulous.
I have, it's actually biblical, but it's, I've got 4 kids and they're all in their early 30s, and I'll be darned, that whole issue is you can't be a prophet in your own land, but you can be a prophet somewhere else. So.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. So a real quick story. So my son was a wrestler and he was really good. He was undefeated. And so they asked me to, be like a little motivation to the wrestling team. This is pre-high school. So these kids are really little. So there's this kid that comes to me and he's about to go onto the mat. And I said, I'm trying to give him some motivation. And I said, he was like 0 and 8. And the kid he was going against was 10 and 0. So he was like, oh God, it's a massacre. So I said, I just got him and I said, listen, what I want you to do is I want to make believe that guy over there kicked your dog. And this kid went out on the mat and just, lambasted the kid. He pinned him within a minute. And everybody was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So they used me as this motivation guy to kind of tell these kids, how to get it together. So one day I'm walking down the street and this guy comes up to me and he goes, are you Mr. Morris? And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, you talk to my son. And he's got his hands on his hips. And I go, yeah. And he goes, yeah, well, ever since you talked to him, he's, eating his vegetables. He's not fighting with his sister. He's doing his homework. He's drinking plenty of water, and I'm just waiting for this other shoe to drop. And he stops right there. And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, you probably say the same thing that I do. And I go, yeah. And so I said, listen, it's not always the message. Sometimes it's the messenger.
Yeah.
And I said, your son was enamored of the fact that I hold the world record in sit-ups. He wanted to listen to me. And that's exactly what you were just saying, Tommy. It's just like if I said something to my kids and Michael Jordan said something to my kids, the same thing. They're going to listen to him. Who cares how you get it across as long as you get them across?
Well, and I think seniors have this opportunity of wisdom, right, of just years and years of being around, of many, I guess there's a story I heard today in Mass. The priest was given a homily, and he says, there's a story of this guy, they moved into this new neighborhood, and he was a little kid, and there was an old folks on the one side of the house of his, and there was an old guy on the other side, and every day he'd swing out on his porch where they were, and people would all stop by at his house, go up to the porch, talk to him for a few minutes, and leave. And so he started doing the same. And over time, he realized they weren't stopping because they thought, oh, he's a lonely guy, his widow had died and all that. They stopped for his wisdom.
Yeah. And they do this in the Asian culture big time. You're deified if you're old. Japan, where I worked in Tokyo. I mean, they just revered their elders. I wish it was that way here in the U.S.
Right, I'm getting eye surgery next week. So.
That's fabulous. I love Japan.
Someone will listen to me eventually. But I really enjoyed coming to your classroom and giving a talk on entrepreneurship because the kids are, their eyes are like this, and they're exciting. And as you compare going home and your kids saying, Dad, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. I said, well, that's not what 70 kids at school just thought.
Yeah. My kids loved you. They just thought you were the cat's meow. Because what it is with kids, especially, just be honest, be sincere, be transparent. They absorb that and they can sense bullshit, or excuse my French on this. they can sense, when it's not right like that. And so you were beautiful. You were great. Yeah.
It's always enjoyable getting pumped up. And I think as a senior, staying young is part of being around young, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
like I'm young to you.
Yes, you're a puppy. You're like my little brother.
So I think being around young people is important, right? It keeps you thinking young. We have something to learn from them.
Right.
They have something to learn from us. I remember taking over, you asked me to take over a program for kids wanting to start a business. And part of me after time was very frustrated that they didn't know anything about really how to do it. They were looking to go to work for some IBM.
Right.
But thinking out of the box and trying to be an entrepreneur and staying patient. And I was learning a lot about how they think, which was really rewarding to me. As you said, you know what, if you're giving, you're getting a lot more back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No question about that. My kids are beautiful. They're like little sponges.
They are.
They just want to absorb everything that you're throwing at them. And I think if you're honest, they sense that straight away. You're never going to be perfect, but you're going to be right on the money for them.
And I think being perfect is not what they want to hear. They want to hear a guy that's had the ups and downs and been beat up and slapped around and had some experience of that. If you were perfect, you're really not real anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why you're my friend.
Right. Hey, so we're getting ready for the last quarter of this, or the last third of this. If you have any questions for Bill, we're at 951-922-3532. We started in the first quarter with the physical, or the first 20 minutes. The next 20, this was mental, and the last is going to be on the spiritual. And so we'll all help each other get to the end with the third leg of the stool. Right?
Beautiful topic.
Now back to the Educated Retirement with guest host Thomas Markel.
Ooh.
Hi, everyone. It's Tom Markel, and thank you again for being here. I have a wonderful guest, friend of mine, professor at UCI, a former investment banker. And if you haven't joined us yet and you're just ready to join us, Bill's talking about his Formula for Success book, which is here. And I know it's coming up in Amazon, but Bill wrote this book about the three-legged stool of success, which is physical, mental, and spiritual. In the first kind of half of the show, we dealt with the physical and the mental, and now we're going to deal with the spiritual. And we're going to finish off with probably the greatest tool that I've seen probably in my lifetime for seniors, called a HECM, a HECM, and how it is really probably the number one wealth preservation product I believe on earth, and we'll talk about why that is. But let's close out your book on the spiritual side, Bill. We talked about the physical, how you set goals for yourself and how you attack it slowly, one step at a time, and grow into, being able to achieve what you're looking to achieve. We talked about the mental side, which is really giving back to others is more important than giving to yourself, and getting rid of the fear aspect of your life. Knock out fear, completely get rid of fear by practicing positive mental thinking. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let me just stop you for a second. So the giving back to others is more on the spiritual side. Okay. On the mental side, it's about how to set your goals, how to deal with setbacks, how to create a positive mental attitude. Those are the things that really kind of bring that together, along with time management. That's the mental part. The spiritual part about giving back to others is really, the crux of what we were talking about before, how it makes us feel really great helping others in need. I just wanted to make that clear, that really kind of starts off the spiritual part. It's how do you, as I say, my motto is learn, earn, and return. It's all about the return, how to give it back, things that we're very grateful for.
So kind of I've learned as a guy that's had 18 companies and created a multi-billion-dollar company as my one out of the park home run. I've really kind of had a spiritual board of directors. As you have you have your board of directors in your company, but I've always had a spiritual board of directors. I think they help act as your sanity committee a bit. So I think there's something to do with prayer, right? I mean, you're always kind of sitting in meditation thinking, how do I do all the things I need to do and get them all done? How do I treat people better? How do I treat what I call my customers, employees, owners, and suppliers? I call it my CEOs. And my spiritual sanity committee always kind of had God as the chairman. Everybody has a God of some nature. It's not a religion, but a God, right? God doesn't need a religion. So it's about having somebody that's bigger than you that you can turn to for all your problems, because oftentimes I think I've found in my life, and maybe you too, that your friends can't answer the problem. They can help listen to your story. You've, at the end of the day, got to unpack it. And between maybe your spouse, between your friends, between a spiritual director and your board of directors, your spiritual board, you can hopefully come about and make a better decision.
Yeah.
Have you found any formula like that works?
Well, I think going back to exactly what you just said there, it's a little bit like when you go through and you've got 36 beautiful years of marriage, you realize that sometimes when your wife wants to unload, she's not looking for a solution. She's looking for somebody to listen.
Right.
And then probably took you 30 years of the 36 to break that code, as most of us. But I think when somebody can unload and just unwind that way, and you're there to listen, that is the best thing in the world, without trying to give, solutions all the time. Your spiritual advisor committee, as you call it, I think is great because they have no vested interest. They have no, no dog in the hunt other than to try to get you to your happy place, if you will. And I think that is absolutely important. One of the things that I say in my book is that one of the keys to success is to be non-judgmental.
Uh-huh.
And I think if we can just, look at every situation in a way that is looking at through the eyes of the other person, it just makes it so much better. Even in the deal business as an M&A investment banker, I always say for a deal to make sense, it's got to work for both sides. So I really have to understand and do more listening than talking, if you will. And I think that's the way it is in life in general. Especially in these hard times that we're going through right now with, the situation in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
We all come into this world totally equal. Why shouldn't it stay that way as far as, just we as people helping other people? To me, that's just the formula for success.
I years ago came to the realization that everybody has a unique thumbprint.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, of all time, from Adam and Eve to right now and past right now, everybody's thumb is uniquely different. And to kind of come to the realization that I'd like to get to know what that thumbprint is on everybody. In other words, it's so unique. God made everybody so unique that everybody's worth discovering this discovery of uniqueness, right?
Yeah.
And I have found that in my customers, employees, owners, and suppliers, some people are really, really bad customers. They're really, really good customers. They're really good students and they're bad students, right? They're good kids and they're bad kids, and they're good neighbors and bad neighbors. And everybody's got a tapestry in life that adds to this tapestry of our own lives. I remember right before my dad died, matter of fact, my dad died at 10:38 on June 1, 5 years ago. And at 11:30, I got to speak to him for 30 minutes. And he says to me two things. He says, promise me you'll keep making new friends. He says, because they'll begin dying. And it was my last friend. He said his last friend died at 80. He lived till he was 88. He says, but I've been a lonely man for 8 years.
Wow.
And he said, I could have done something about that. I could have been involved in more community things. I could have met more clubs. I could have gotten more involved in my church. I could have reached out, like you said, and doing something more for the greater good. And I didn't. I got lazy. And it was my fault. I was lonely for not doing it. As you said, it's about giving back. And I think you can give back all the way to the deathbed, right? I mean, he felt he could have. Yeah. Just keep making new friends. And then the second piece of advice, he says, Get done whatever you're going to get done before you're 80, because it's dog years after that. So travel and get whatever you want to eat, whatever you want to see, but do it while you're young.
I love it. Yeah. I'm going to write that one down. Hold on.
Write that one down. But I think that what you're trying to say, and I think on the spirituality side of life, always appealing to a higher nature in my advisory committee, which happens to be, St. Thomas and St. Dominic, and, my spiritual committee, the good Lord, Mary and Joseph and so on and so forth. I have this spiritual committee that I've kind of gone to for all of my problems or my issues or my unpacking. And I got to tell you, it's very refreshing to have a spiritual committee that you can talk to. People might think I'm a bit crazy when I tell them I'm talking to these guys all the time, and they say, "Are they talking back?"
Let me write that one down. That's a good one.
They're talking back. They're talking back all the time.
I just want to know what they're saying.
Yeah. Yes. Well, you know what Einstein says? He says, "What did he say? I want to know God's thoughts. The rest are just details."
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah.
And I think as we get older, this fear thing drops into the bucket, and the bucket starts filling up more with fear than it does with joy. And how do we bring that joy? How do we bring joy back into our lives through some sort of practice?
Yeah. Everything is practice, Tom. There's no question about it. I don't know. I think there's so much that emanates from our childhood also. And so, like I said to you before, fear is not really part of my chemistry. It's not part of my makeup. So it doesn't, expand or multiply or whatever, but joy does. And, that's what puts a smile on my face. And that's what's, really, really super critical for me. The joy that I see in others when I help them is a joy that's multiplied by 10 in me. And this might be a perfect segue to the Heckham thing, how you and Jay and I kind of were sitting down at lunch and putting it together, knowing that prior to 2017, this world was not that great in the world of reverse mortgages. But after 2017, people need to be aware of what's going on. And maybe you could take it from there.
Yeah. It's a good point about joy. It's very hard to be joyful when you're looking at bankruptcy or you're looking at cash coming down in your bank account. It's very hard to be joyful when you see that the bills are getting paid or your mortgage is coming up next month on the 5th and you got to get your check from Social Security and you're trying to balance this whole issue. And it's not necessarily for the people who are trying to figure out how to balance the capital, but as I think I've shared with you, I have a friend that has a $25 million home down on the Strand next to the Ritz-Carlton, and he took out a $4 million retirement mortgage, or Heckham, or reverse, whatever you want to call them. And he took that $4 million. He could have not done that, but it was tax-free. He took it out and he has 2 kids. He bought a $2 million home for each kid, and they don't make payments.
Right.
So I think from anybody that's really trying to figure out how to manage their wealth preservation all the way to figuring out how to increase wealth, just not preserve wealth, but really increase wealth, there's nobody that can beat this Heckham product of any financial instrument in the market, insurance, financial planning, stocks, bonds. I don't care what it is. Put me up against the finest person in the marketplace, and I will show you a better instrument called a home equity conversion mortgage. Let's talk about the naming of this product, which is really a pet peeve of mine. And more importantly, kind of how we came together as the three of us. So back in October of last year, I'm playing golf with a guy, and he says, Tom, and as many of you know, I started a company called Impact, which grew to about $2 billion, and I sold it. And that was 20 years ago. And I never thought I'd live long enough to see a product that improves so many people's lives, like this Heckham home equity conversion mortgage. It used to be called a reverse. You can't even get a reverse today, but it used to be called a reverse. So I said back in October, anybody that would sell this product to a senior should be thrown in jail and hung, because it is a bad product. And this guy says to me, he says, listen, do not believe that, Tom. It has changed radically since HUD took the program, made major changes in 2017, might have been 15, and then again in 17. But he said, talk to this guy named Jay Kaplan. This guy's forgot more about reverses and Heckams than you'll ever know. So Jay and I had lunch here back, I don't know, it was probably November or December. And he took me under his wing and kind of showed me the law. I'm kind of like Thomas, I got to stick my hands in the fingers and my hands on the sides. And my name is Thomas anyway, so I gotta read it myself. I gotta see it. So he gave me this library of information, and I read it. And then he started giving me some senior people in the business. And then I kind of came over to you and showed it to you, and you said the same thing. And there's no, Tom, that's just no way, because you're a professor. You need to understand it yourself. And then you got into it and you said, oh my gosh, this is an eye-opener of financial products in the marketplace that most people don't know about. They know about the old one where, the banks issued it, they kicked you out of your home when you were a senior, they kicked your wife out after you died, they sold the house, kept the equity. I mean, it was just awful, a product. And then HUD says, fundamentally, we've got a problem with Social Security, we've got a problem with Medicare. These things are not going to. We got liquid issues right in the future for our kids. What kind of product is out there that would really help them? Then they looked at how much equity is in the homes of people that are over 60, and it's $7 trillion, Bill. $7 trillion.
It's crazy.
Now, to give some sense of what the T word is, there's $1 trillion of credit card debt on the planet. There's $1 trillion of auto debt. There's $1 trillion of student loans, and there's $7 trillion of equity in people over 60. And it's just sitting there doing nothing. So the government said, fundamentally, this is a great product. Fundamentally, let's do something about it. Let's take this program over, and let's make sure basically it's a lifetime forbearance, right? Okay. Then you have the senior that says, oh, gee, my wife gets to own this till she dies. And then they can sell the house, the kids can, and they can get all the equity. And you can buy the kids think, oh my God, my parents are Pac-Manning my equity, it's going away. But you can buy a term life insurance policy if you want, which is 1/10 of what you were paying on your monthly mortgage, and the kids get a house free and clear. So it's just, I get so excited I can jump through the screen and hug you or something.
Hey, give it a try. No, but I think,
coming.
Yeah. I think, everything that you're saying, Tom, makes so much sense. But you and I have been in this for a while, so we understand a little bit more of the details. That's why when we create Heckham University, that basically can put this together in very simple terms, it'll be on YouTube, and people can get educated, and then for them, they can make their decisions whether it works or it doesn't work for them. But this will be something that helps people throughout the country.
Well, appreciate you, Bill, coming to join us. It was wonderful to have you. I know you have lots of things to do in your life, so we really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for listening to us. I hope you like the show. And Jay, I hope your point ratings go way up.